We're here with Susan Kaiser Greenland, author of The Mindful Child, founder of Inner Kids, and teacher of mindful awareness to teens, families, and parents. Welcome, Susan. Tell us what you've been up to.
So it's children, teens, families, parents, and other caregivers. So that's basically where I work. I try to work with people who are either children themselves or are in the business, either in their home life or in their work life, of taking care of other people, of being caretakers. And what I've been up to is I'm finishing a book project. I've got a two project. I don't know what you'd really call it. I've got two different projects coming out with Shambhala. The first is a book, and then that will come out in the fall. And 6 months later will come out a set of cards, which are mindful games for families to play at home, at school, or after school, Girl Scout troops, that kind of thing.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Can you tell us a little bit more about the way in which kids might and parents might use the new books and cards?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the idea is since I started working in this area, which is maybe around 15 years ago now, maybe more professionally, probably about 15 years ago. I was a lawyer before and a lawyer for a good long time, about 20 years. And I started practicing with my own kids and then volunteering in some schools. So during that time, I developed a bunch of games and different activities or stories that we would tell that taught not just the skills of mindfulness and the practice that we learn through the practice of mindfulness and meditation, but also teach the themes that are really threaded through the worldview. And I think that's a very important one-two punch, teaching both the skill building and the life skills that can help children become more resilient and have a stronger, more flexible capacity to attend. But in addition to that, we need to thread through that the worldview and the themes that make up that worldview of wisdom, of kindness, and compassion. So I've been developing that, for a good long time now. I wrote a book about it a while ago that you mentioned. After that, I had something interesting happen. I'd only really worked with kids before, and only the teachers who I taught with, who I had been training, all were real meditators. So they had long established meditation practices, as I did at the time. But after the book came out, I started getting these wonderful opportunities to go out on the road and talk to people who had never meditated before, but they were caregivers and they wanted to help. They wanted to help the kids in their lives. And then in the process of trying to help the kids, they found how meditation could help themselves. So that was a real wake-up call for me, because before I had really created materials and done work for people who were already meditating to assist them in using what they knew in connection with the children that they were sharing meditation and mindfulness with. And the shift was, how can you get really the essential pieces of this work and this worldview out to people who have little to no experience meditating yet have a desire to start to help right away with kids. So how do you really bridge that? And so that's the work I've been doing since The Mindful Child came out. And that's what will be coming out in the book of games that comes out in the fall.
Very cool. So you have a new book with the games. What other things will you have emerging in your work in 2016? And then more broadly, are there any themes that are emerging in the field, presenting mindful awareness to children, teens, and families and caregivers, or even more broadly, themes that you think our audience should know about?
Yeah, sure. I mean, what I'll be doing over the next year is really supporting the work that's coming out, and I'll be doing some trainings and some speaking and that sort of thing, the thing I usually do. I mean, what I like to do, there's so many people who are doing such a great job of building strong organizations that have large reaches. And what I try to do to counter that, and also just because it's much more suited to who I am and to what my skill set is I try to work more like the watchmaker making the watch. I try to work more on the detail. And I think and then get it out through places like Mindful, through books, through websites, that sort of thing. But I think that that's important. And I think that's the theme that we really need to watch and are watching as we see this evolution of mindfulness, meditation, and compassion move out into the mainstream. And so the general theme that I am most interested in right now, and that I think is important to watch is how we take all the good work that's been done in creating the word mindfulness uh, and the word meditation into more accessible words that anybody can understand and that are kind of on the tip of people's tongues. When I started to try to teach mindfulness in public schools, we often went in and we did gardening with the kids and then we'd do a little breathing practice. I mean, just to say up front, we're practicing mindfulness, people just scratched their head. And it wasn't only that they thought it was religious, although some people did. Some of it thought it was just very harsh. It was like, be mindful, like eat your peas. And so we've done a really great job in the field, and Mindful Magazine's done a great job of getting the word out about mindfulness and what it is in general. Now it's time to really get down into, while keeping mindfulness simple and accessible, not losing the nuance that's really necessary to have some sort of true transformation or change happen to the practitioners and to the world around us.
What would you suggest that Mindful could do to help with the work that you're doing and with those issues in the field generally in 2016?
Well, I think you're already doing some great things. I think Barry Boyce's editorials, I think, did you say top of mind? Is that what you're calling them?
Point of view.
Totally point of view. I think those editorials are fantastic and exactly what needs to happen. Barry writes so beautifully and in such plain English, but yet he is not glossing over the nuance. So more things like point of view, I think, are really important. And I think as a field as a whole, and something that you guys are really uniquely situated to help us do, and something we really, really need, is that one of the things that has happened, which makes sense if you look at it from a developmental perspective, because after all, I spend a lot of time with kids, so I tend to think of things like, where are we developmentally? What does this child have the developmental capacity to actually do and understand at 3, at 6, at 9, at 16? As a field, developmentally, we're kind of in a very appropriate place. The field is developing concentration, which is the first thing we do anyway in practicing mindfulness and meditation. And the field is that's where we are right now. But what we are missing a little bit, I think, and what you guys could really help us do is help people see the transformation in the way of navigating the world, the way of steering through the world, the conflicts we have, internal conflicts within ourselves, interpersonal conflicts, worldwide conflicts. How do you navigate those in a different way? And the only way we can do that is by seeing models of people who actually do live differently. And one of the things that's happened with the popularization of mindfulness is we've got a lot of people learning the attention skills and having some really wonderful experiences and benefits based on their mindfulness practice. But then they're using that in exactly the same sort of driven, more narrow, more getting ahead way of Western culture. And the only way people can actually see there's a different way of doing this, that there's a broader way of living in the world, is through modeling. So we need to get some people out there who are not just great at taking mindfulness and making it into a wonderful, sustainable business. We need to get some people out there who come from who are living mindfully in a way that looks different than somebody who's been able to succeed in the Western sense. Does that make sense? I'm not sure I was very
Yes,
clear.
Yes, that's very clear. Very clear. Thank you, Susan.